All right. Well, welcome everybody to our workshop. My name is Professor Mariah Burkert. I work at Lancaster Bible College both as an Ally Center staff member specializing in writing. I also do some adjuncting, so you may see me around for a writing class now and again. I have been at LBC since 2021, and I actually went to LBC as an undergraduate in person. I will not disclose how long how long ago. People are like, "Oh, you look so young." I'm like, "Well, relatively, only relatively speaking." So, I'm very excited to be jumping into our workshop today, learning the library, how to find scholarly sources without losing your mind, because now this is where we have our audience participation part of the night, part one. Give me a raised hand, indicate in the chat something if you feel a little bit stressed about potentially trying to find scholarly sources at all, just like in general, forget about in the library, right? Um, I tell my students whenever I'm teaching in class that finding sources, doing good research, is one of the hardest skills, period, that you will grow in as a student in college. It's, I think, again, even though it's easier than it was 20,
I'm taking notes
30,
this time.
40 years ago, whenever we had to go to the library and,
That's
comb through
Charlene.
the catalogs and
Taking my
find all of those different sources, where you're like looking things up by the numbers. We don't have to do that anymore, but we still have to find sources and we still have to figure out, well, how do I find the type of source that my professors want me to find? Now, show of hands, how many of you, this is your very first subterm and first set of classes at LBC? You're entering your first set of classes. Cool, couple of us. Now, how many of
yes.
you, this is not your first class, but you're still in early stages? You're like at early stages, earlier. Okay. So probably those of you who are just getting started, you're heading into either like FAS 100 or maybe LAN 100. How many of you have already had those classes? FAS 100, LAN 100. Couple of us. Who's
I've
heading
had
into that this subterm? Couple of us. Great. So LAN 101 is another one where you're going to be asked to find specific sources. So all three of these starter classes, they're classes that basically everybody needs to take, and they ask you to find stuff. And you have to go on like the search. It's like finding Easter eggs. You're like, how do I find the stuff? So we're going to go through. I'm going to show you how to find, to navigate the library system, how to find books, scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles, background material, newspapers, and then we're also going to talk about using stuff like Google to find other kinds of sources and even some of those sources that we just talked about. Tawana.
fast, kind of go at slow pace because I suffer with vertigo. So can you work with me, please?
I will do my best. I have so much energy, though. I am so excited to go over this information with you. Forgive me if I go too fast. Just give me a reminder and say, please, please, can you
Yes,
slow
ma'am.
down? Please.
Okay. Yes,
Um,
ma'am. Thank you.
absolutely. Um, Again, just as a reminder, we are recording this workshop. So whenever we are finished, I will be able to, again, after editing the video, send you the recording. Again, I'll cut off the beginning and end for any just sort of um, chatting that we did, and then it'll just be the content of the video. I'll also send over the PowerPoint that I'm rolling through. We are, throughout the course of this video, going to be bouncing back and forth between this PowerPoint presentation, and I'm actually going to be walking you through how to use the library live. I would encourage you strongly to, if you have your computer or laptop nearby, to hop on and follow along with me, because the practical experience of walking through the steps, in my mind, is almost more helpful than just having somebody tell you where to find things. Whenever you start to build that muscle memory of, oh, I'm going to click here and then this is what that looks like, it'll just help to get started right away. So I'm going to minimize this, put this off to the side. Go away. Okay. So learning the library, here we go. First, finding background material. Background material is usually going to be important for our LAN 100 and LAN 101 classes, not as much necessary for FAS 100. But even beyond our LAN courses, there's going to be times whenever you need to find some definitions. You're going to need to think about what's the context that I'm going to be approaching this argumentative essay from. And you just need to know what's the background information. So I'm going to show you, again, two different categories of things. I'll show you how to find stuff in the library and then how to find stuff on Google. Yolanda, was that an intentional raised hand or?
It was. I didn't want to interrupt you,
Of course, no, go for it.
but my next class, my first introductory class is Intro to Biblical Research, Bib 505.
Oh,
Is
wow.
this gonna help me?
Oh, yes.
It can't hurt me, right?
Oh, yes. This will definitely help you. I actually have some stuff that's specifically for biblical information. So
Okay.
definitely put it in the back pocket, hang on to it. We will absolutely cover it. But I'm glad to know because that means that I'll definitely be like, and for Yolanda, here we go. Here we are. So let's roll into it here. So first of all, for background material that's inside the library, we have three starter databases. And a database or database, I will probably switch back and forth in pronunciation throughout the course of our workshop, are just online libraries. They're online collections of resources, essentially. And they're located within the library, so referring to them as an online library is a little bit confusing, but it's essentially an online collection. So we have these three right here: Gale and Context, Opposing Views, Credo Reference, specifically the pro-con subcategory, and then Issues and Controversies. And again, this is going to end up being more of a resource for you all whenever you are finished. We're going to be, like I said, bouncing back and forth between this and the library. So I'm going to go ahead and hop over to the library so you can see what I'm doing here. Give me a thumbs up whenever you can see my screen. It should be the library screen. Lancaster Bible College. I see some thumbs up. That's fabulous. So to get here, oh, we got Judith coming in. Bring her on in. Welcome, Judith. Glad to have you. Whenever you go to lbc.edu, on the top left-hand corner is a little button for the library. You can always access the library section that way. You can also, if you are inside the student portal, on the left-hand side here, the library button is there as well. So there's a couple of different ways you can access that. So how do we get to the LAN 101 research guide, which will allow us to get to those three starter databases? You're going to scroll down on your library page, and under the Find menu, you're going to click on Research Guides. And then you're going to click on Academic Services. Nope, sorry, not yet. That's at the end. That'll be at the end when we click on Academic Services. Scroll down and click on Literature and Language. And then you have all of these different classes, and you're just looking for English Composition, LAN 101. Just so you know, the one for the LAN 100s is similar. It's almost exactly the same. However, I like the way that it's laid out for English Comp LAN 101 a lot better. It's just easier to see the information, so I'm going to operate from this research guide. The home page isn't actually very helpful for directly finding sources. It's just a landing spot. So the next thing we're going to want to click on is databases and tutorials. And here we have those three starter databases: Gale and Context, Credo, ProCon, and then Issues and Controversies. Now, each one of these are, like I said, starter databases. They help to provide background information, particularly for LAN 101, where you're going to be writing persuasive argumentative essays and you're going to need to argue either side of a controversial issue. These are really great databases. Like I said, they give you some controversial topics. Just so you know, Credo Reference is itself a database. So let me go ahead and open the pro-con aspect of Credo so you can see what I'm talking about. And we will wait an eternity for it to load. Okay, so you see pro-con in big letters here. And what this has is alphabetized all of these articles that give the pros and the cons about a topic. And again, this is really excellent for you to get started. Even if this is just maybe you're not doing an argumentative essay, but you're doing background research, because it's going to give both sides of an issue, and it's going to give a little bit of the history of how this issue came to the forefront. And so if you're thinking about both, I need to give background information, or maybe you just need to discover something about a topic, because hopefully in these classes that we're taking, whether we're at an undergraduate or graduate level, we're coming in with, yes, some knowledge, but we're coming in to learn about some topics as well. And so you may be assigned to write about something, or you may just choose to write about something which you're excited to learn more about. And so you're going to go in and you may not know even what words to search for to figure out how do you find more specific information about that topic. And so going into these starter databases and clicking in, reading through these, again, starter articles can help to give you some vocabulary for how to categorize your searches later, how to use some search terms later on. So we'll come back to that later, but I wanted to, again, just highlight that here. Something else with Credo Reference, I'm going to go back to this page. So if you just do a search right here in this box, so let's say I search for abortion in this box, it's not going to take me to the same place. It's going to take me to Credo Reference in general. And Credo Reference is a reference database. So it has encyclopedias, dictionaries, more encyclopedias, more dictionaries. And so you can see here we have an encyclopedia, another encyclopedia, another encyclopedia. So again, this is a really great place to go if you're looking for background information. It's a great replacement for something like Wikipedia, because we don't want to use Wikipedia because anybody can access information on Wikipedia. I'll never forget the one time a librarian came into our class and she was giving the talk about the library, and she said, my 12-year-old nephew likes to edit the Wikipedia articles. That's what he does for fun. And so, who knows? Maybe that article that you're reading on Wikipedia was actually edited by a 12-year-old who's related to the librarians at LBC. So we want to use something that's a little bit more credible. Credo Reference is a great place to go for that. So again, we have our starter databases that you get to through the LAN 101 research guide. So Gale in Context, Credo Reference, and Issues and Controversies. The other place you can go, and whenever I come back to the PowerPoint, you'll see that slide advance, is basically just Google. The Google or DuckDuckGo or even AI. So I'm going to talk about each one of those. How many of you like Google? Anybody like using Google? Or maybe you say, I don't like Google, but I do use Google. I use Google. Sometimes I get frustrated with Google because it's a little bit biased. And you'll search for certain things and you may find it on page like 22. So in place of Google, sometimes I'll use DuckDuckGo or a different search platform. Right now, whenever I open my web browser, you're going to see that it's just going to go to, I think, Bing. But any of them, whenever I say Google, fill it in with whatever your preferred search term is. So you can, whenever you're using Google, if you're looking for background information, type in something like background information on abortion. And then you can take a look at some of this information. The nice thing about using Google for any of your searches or DuckDuckGo or things like that is that there is an algorithm that's at work which will translate your vocabulary into, and it'll pull stuff. And you're like, oh, thanks. Thanks, Google. So it does some heavy lifting for us. I will admit that using the search terms is one of the harder things about doing searches in the library databases, is that you have to be really strategic with how you're combining words together. And whenever you're using the Google, you don't have to do that. You can just write a couple sentences and it'll do a little bit of that heavy lifting, like I said, for us. Something else that you can do is you can use your AI mechanism of choice. Now, how many of you have used an artificial intelligence for something, AI? You like, if you've used it for something, how many of you are like, oh, look, I'm afraid to use AI for school. Don't talk to me about for school. Wait, for school? Can I? Now, I will admit that there's a lot of like, we got to be careful with how we use AI in an educational setting. Definitely. However, there are some strategic ways that you can use it. And one way is through using research. So, but specifically, like we got to be very, very, very strategic. What we don't want to do is type something into, let's say, Copilot, because that's what I have up. It's not my favorite one to use, but I'm actually just gonna use the search right here. There we go. And let's say, okay, so it says background information on abortion. What I wouldn't do is I wouldn't just quote this blurb right here and say, well, Copilot says blah, blah, blah. I don't want to do that. Instead, what I would do is I would say, ooh, I see that there's this information with Britannica. Okay, let's take a look at that. And I would use Copilot to find sources. And in fact, I've actually done that quite a few times where I've said, hey, I like to use Grok. Find scholarly sources published within the last 5 to 10 years that discuss pros and cons of abortion. Make sure to provide links that are accessible to the public or whatever. And then I'll use that to try to find things. And that's actually pretty effective because it'll sort through and it'll find stuff that's open to the public, that is recent, and that has links. And I can even do things like, hey, whenever you're looking for sources on this, avoid any sources that are anonymous or that are published just on blogs, sources that are like Wikipedia, and it will sort those resources out. So that's, again, a strategic way to use AI. Always tell it to provide links though, and always read the sources yourself, because AI is really good at just giving you what you want, whether that thing exists or not. And so sometimes it'll invent something that's not there. And so you have to actually make sure that you're going in, you're clicking on links, and you're reading the articles to make sure it's actually saying what it's claiming to say. I can't tell you the number of times where I've said, hey, find this. And it's like, here you go. It's on page 72. And I'm like, this page 72 doesn't talk about that. So, again, if you're broad enough, it does a pretty good job of finding information. But if you're too specific, then it sort of tricks itself into providing information for you. I'm going to stop the share and swing back over to the PowerPoint. As I slide back over to the PowerPoint, does anybody have any additional questions or any questions? Nope, from current slide. Any questions before we move forward? And I just hit everybody, so I can't see. Any questions? Not yet. Okay. All right, let's keep on rolling. So now we're going to talk about finding scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles. Scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles are probably the hardest thing that you'll be asked to find at LBC. Again, whether you're in an undergraduate or a graduate program, these types of articles are not blogs, they're not newspaper articles, and they're not even things like book reviews or reports. They're scholarly sources that are reviewed by a team of peers, and then they have to go through this rigorous process to get published in a specific scholarly journal. I always, whenever I talk about scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles, I try to use all of those. I try to use all of the words so I make sure that my students know exactly what I'm talking about. And so you'll see me use in the slides the abbreviation SPRJA because it's a scholarly peer-reviewed journal article. So if you're wondering, hey, what's an SPRJA? That's what it is. Most of the time in your classes, you will be asked to find, and again, especially in FAS 100, LAN 100, LAN 101, and then in those graduate courses as well, you're going to be asked to find at least some scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles. So I'm going to take you through, again, how to do that the in the databases of LBC, and then I'll show you a couple of sort of outside the school's resources that we can use as well. So, best bets. Now, if you go into the library yourself and you're looking through, you're going to see that each team who works in the different subjects has their own best bets. And I'm going to go through and show you again some of my favorites because I don't know, sometimes I try what other people say are their best bets and I can't find stuff and I'm like, I don't know why I can't find the information. Regardless, we will do our best here. So best bets in the LBC library. I just realized I didn't write Scholar after Google, so Google Scholar in the LBC library. JSTOR and Academic Search Premier are the three best bets for me, just generally speaking, in the LBC library. And then for outside the library, if you're just doing, again, like a Google search or a DuckDuckGo, and you say, hey, find me scholarly sources that talk about, find me scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles that talk about. These four are some of the where I find students are finding sources most often. The National Library of Medicine, PLOS journals, Francis and Taylor, and SAGE. And I'm not going to show you, hey, Google, blah, blah, blah. You'll just see. If you're Googling, these four will pop up. I am going to switch back over to LBC Library, and I'm going to show you the three, Google Scholar, JSTOR, and Academic Search Premier, just so you can sort of see what that looks like. So let's hop on over back to the library. And we will share our screen again. Thumbs up whenever you can see my screen. It should be just the Google or the Bing, I should say. All right.
I'm not seeing that page for some reason. Maybe I'm doing something wrong.
I'll try to reshare. Can you see it now, Jerry? You're muted, my friend.
I'm sorry. I can see it from here, but I was trying
Okay.
to actually see it on my laptop. So
Oh,
but
okay.
okay, so you just want us to focus on what we see here on the screen.
Yeah,
Okay.
so in a second, I'm going to show you how to get to the page. So if you go back to the LBC page, I'm going to pop this over. Melissa, thanks for joining us. Good to see you again, my friend. So you're on the library homepage and scroll down underneath Find, go to Databases. Now, if you just scroll endlessly, you can get to any of those three databases. I do like to sort by letter because I don't like scrolling for ages and ages and ages. So I'm going to go to G for Google Scholar. Now I'm going to scroll down until I get to Google Scholar. And Google Scholar, again, is really great because you can just type in your search query. So evidence, need to actually click in the box. Evidence for Bethany being a leper colony. Enter. And then you can see what pops up, whether it's relevant or not. And then you can see if you need to do any additional restrictions over here on the side. Now, just so you know, what will sometimes pop up in Google Scholar is you will get, of course, scholarly articles, but you may also get books or book chapters, which is nice sometimes. Sometimes you want books or book chapters. And sometimes you'll even get thesis or dissertation papers that people submit for their master's or doctoral degrees. And there's nothing wrong with using those necessarily. However, if you are trying to find a scholarly peer-reviewed journal article to satisfy criteria for an assignment, you will want to double check and make sure that you did indeed find a scholarly peer-reviewed journal article and not a dissertation or a thesis. If it looks like a student paper, it probably is a student paper. So just be aware of that even if it's published, it's just not the same kind of thing. It's not a bad thing, it's just not the same kind of thing. So that's Google Scholar. I often get really good results with Google Scholar. It's easy to use, great results. Next, we're going to talk about JSTOR. Go to J for JSTOR. JSTOR, whenever you click on it, it's going to look like it's asking you to log in, sign up for an account. You do not need to sign up for an additional account. You're just going to X out of this. You are now logged in. You are logged in. You don't need to sign up for anything additional. They do have an advanced search, which sometimes I will use. But if you say, Bethany lepers, let's just do that, a basic search, you can get some great results right away. On the left-hand side, note that you can limit the results, journals, book chapters, and then depending on if you have them, reports are also available in JSTOR. So if you just want the journals, you'll click on that. Something else that you can do in JSTOR, if you scroll down on the left, of course, you can always sort by date, is you can sort by subject. So if I know that this is for my Bible class, I don't necessarily need American or African studies. It's not necessarily relevant for the scope of what I'm talking about. So I might say, okay, well, I'm going to select the category of maybe Jewish studies and religion, and maybe that'll help narrow down the search results, because even though it's only 106 results, it's still 106 results, and I don't have time to read 106 articles. And so, we would use that search to sort of narrow things down. Now, if I did this search, and let's camp out in JSTOR for just a second. If I'm looking at sources and I'm trying to figure out whether or not it's a good source for me to use in my research, I always start by just looking at the title. Oftentimes you can find out a lot about a source just by looking at the title. The social condition of lepers in the Gospels. Okay, that one, just from what I'm thinking about, sounds like it might be relevant. From holy hostess to dragon tamer. What? Doesn't seem to be quite as relevant, right, to my search on lepers and Bethany. And so whenever you're looking at just the titles, that sometimes can be enough. Sometimes if you're looking at this little excerpt, this can help you provide additional information. And then sometimes if you click on an article, it'll have an abstract at the beginning. And the abstract is when the authors will write their own little summary of the article. And if you read that abstract and it seems to be relevant, then you can go ahead, and I like to download them and save them because I'm neurotic about losing sources. But you can keep those and pull them off to the side to see, hey, is this super relevant or not? So I was at the title, little summary, and then the abstract.
So pretty much
Yes.
JSTOR, it's just like another website that you can go to find scholarly articles.
Yes, but we have access to it through the LBC library. All of the databases that I'll show you are basically additional sites, and it'll sort of pop up sometimes in different windows. So Google Scholar, JSTOR, Academic Search Premier, Hein Online, they're all, like I said, they're sort of like online collections, the websites that collect the different material together. And so, but won't be like if I just typed in JSTOR from my computer, it would say, hey, you need to sign in. You don't have access to this. So you need to enter it from the LBC library.
Okay.
Great question. Anybody have any follow-up questions on that or any additional questions at this point before we look at Academic Search Premier?
Now, I have a question. What
Yeah.
is the difference between like a scholarly, you said in a scholarly article versus, I guess something else?
So it's the level of review. So a scholarly peer-reviewed journal article, very specific. Actually, let's back up a little bit. So if I am writing a blog post and I have my own blog, do I need to run my blog by anybody before I hit publish? No, right?
No.
I just, and then I hit the publish button, and then the world gets to see about how I almost died in a thunderstorm whenever I took a canoe trip with Girl Scouts down the Wisconsin River, right? No, everybody
Okay.
gets to see that. So there's basically no review. If you are writing for a newspaper, you usually have an editor or a team of editors who has to review your work before you publish it. So it's a higher level of review. A
Okay.
scholarly peer-reviewed journal article has an even higher level of review. It's called peer-reviewed because literally there will be a team of peers in the field, whatever field that is, medicine, technology, I say science, but like they're all of the different sciences,
Mm-hmm.
theology, and they'll say, hey, before you publish for my journal, you have to send your article to this team and they have to read it, and they'll look at your methodology, your references, and they'll carefully read it and say, first, did you do a good job? Did you do a good job with your research? And secondly, is your article a good fit for our journal and our purposes? And so it has to pass that high level of review before it's considered for admission into the journal.
Okay.
Usually scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles, there's like a 6-month lag. Like you won't see stuff that's super recent about a topic because it takes so long for that process to roll through.
Okay. Thank you for
Great.
answering that.
Of course. Again, a great question. All right. Any other questions before we keep rolling? Time flies when you're having fun. Okay, let's go. So that was JSTOR. Again, I like JSTOR. I often find great stuff on JSTOR. Not always, though. That's why I'm showing you multiple favorites, because sometimes one will have something, but the other one won't. I'm going to go to A. However, the Academic Search Premier is also over here on the side, but I just wanted to show you, go to A for Academic Search Premier. Academic Search Premier, out of the 3 that we've looked at so far, is the only one that has the actual search terms right here. And so you would need to be able to type in what you're looking for. So abortion, let's say, and maybe bodily autonomy, let's say. So I'm going to do a search just to get ourselves into the system. Now, it's important to note that with scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles, I usually don't use them to try to find background information because they're usually written on a very narrow topic. I use the scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles to fill in specific areas of my research, specific things that I'm looking for. So I really need to be strategic with my search terms. Otherwise, I'm going to get 50,000 search results, and none of us have that kind of time to look through that many results. So we want to use strategic search terms. And again, I only have 3,500 here, but that's still a lot. That's still a lot of stuff. Now, whenever I do this search, Academic Search Premier contains scholarly journal articles, but it's not all scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles. So I want to limit my results to peer-reviewed. So I'm going to click that button. So it eliminated about 1,000 results. So that's good to know. So some of these results were just like a newspaper or a magazine. So we got to use our search terms to get rid of that information. The other thing that I always like to do is I like to check the box, click on full text. Full text means that it's available right away in the library or through an additional link. I don't need to request another library send it to us. Now, as long as you have time, you can still do things that are not full text. And the librarian at the other library that you're requesting it from, within a couple of days, we'll get that over to you. But if you're like me and you're doing your research perhaps a little bit last minute, or you just want to see it right away, I like to make sure I like to see my research right away. I don't like to have to wait. So I always click on full text as well. Again, you can also refine your results by date. Sometimes professors will have requirements on how recent the research is. The other thing you can do here is you can, so if we take a look at our filters over here, you can refine by language and geography. If you're looking to narrow your search results to just stuff that's written and published in the United States, or if you only speak English like I do, and you're like, I don't want results in French or German or Spanish. Sometimes Academic Search Premier does have those, so you can eliminate that by selecting for language as well. So that's the first three. In our scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles, we have the, where are we? Here we are. Here we are. Google Scholar, JSTOR, and Academic Search Premier. I mentioned those other ones. I'm not going to show you them because you're just going to Google and see what comes up. But they often will have grid information. However,
how do I screenshot this like on my
it's
this
a great
page here?
question, but I will send you the entire PowerPoint whenever we're done. So you do
All right,
have
that's
to.
even better.
Yeah, even better. Depending on what you have, it'll display in different ways. So, can you guys all see my screen with Theology Bible and the different assorted platforms? Can we see that? Yes. Okay. Great. So I always like to check just in case. Sometimes you're going to be doing a specific subject search, and so earlier we were talking about how will this be relevant to me in this particular class? Yes, here's where the rubber really meets the road. So if you're doing theology and Bible, I'm going to show you guys three, and again, these are highlighted just sort of as notes for you for later: Theological Journals Online, Theological Journal Search, and At-Love Religion database. And even if you're not doing if you're not in a theology class, knowing these three can be helpful for you depending on what you're trying to write for other classes. And then these four are my best ones for other classes. So criminal justice is Hein Online, and I have no idea if I'm saying that correctly. Nobody's ever corrected me. Education, ERIC, the ERIC database is really, really excellent. I usually find excellent education resources in that database. Medline and Psych articles are both science oriented. They are very technically sort of split between just sort of general science and then psychology, but oftentimes there's going to be overlap between those two whenever you're doing research for those topics. So I'm going to stop the share and again hop back over to our web browser. Okay. Thanks, Melissa. So if we come back to the library, same page, I do like to go to the databases. And then once you're in databases, you can sort by subject. And so you can say, hey, give me databases that are just for Bible and theology. And it'll sort. And again, I mentioned that the people who are experts in those subjects have created their own best bets. Some of these I agree with, and some I have my own. So like I said, with Bible and theology, Theological Journal Search is essentially Google Scholar, but it has been customized in the background to just do theological topics, Bible and theology topics. I love this. It's fabulous. It's amazing. It makes my Google searching even easier and even more scholarly. So I definitely like Theological Journal Search. If you scroll all the way down here to the bottom, Theological Journals Online, I will show you this one because it looks really different. And you look at this and you're like, where oh, where is the search button? And what you're going to do is under Journals menu, you'll click on Search Journals. And then you can search for, again, let's just say abortion, just for our kicks and giggles. And then you can see all of these different results that came up right away. Something to be careful about in this database is that it does contain a lot of book reviews. And so just be aware of that as you're looking. If it's only a page and a half long and the title is review of such and such book, and it has like the date and stuff in it, then it's probably a book review. Again, not bad to use a book review. It's just not the same thing as a scholarly peer-reviewed journal article if that's what you're looking for. The last one, Atla Religion Database, is very, very similar in structure to Academic Search Premier, but it just has the limitations of religion. And so the searches are going to be pretty much the same in how you go about them with your search terms and the selecting for peer review. It's just in a different pool. If you're thinking about fishing in the ocean versus fishing in a pond that, you know, only has trout in it, this one has is a pond that's more for religion. Now, again, even if you're not in a Bible class right now, these three databases can be helpful for helping you provide a biblical perspective on the issue. A lot of your classes will ask you very specifically to provide a Christian/biblical perspective. And you may just want to include it, whether it's specifically required or not. And you may be looking for something that's not a blog, because there are a lot of great blogs that are out there that are written by great people, but you may, again, just want something that's a little bit more credible, a little bit more scholarly to back up your perspective. And so those three are really excellent sources for that purpose. I will just briefly go ahead and highlight how I got to those other ones. So criminal justice, again, sorting right here. Hein Online right here. It looks really interesting. So I'm just going to take you over to it so you can look at it, observe. This is what it looks like. Your search is over here. You're going to look at it over here, or you can hit advanced search. You're not going to do find a database. You're going to look for it up here. Always make sure for Hein Online that you definitely download the resource and have it accessible, because sometimes the links break for this database. I don't know why, but I've had a lot of students have trouble re-finding their source after they got it from this database. They do often, though, have excellent stuff with criminal justice or criminal justice adjacent topics. Education, Eric, right here. It again looks like Academic Search Premier, unless they updated it. Nope, looks the same. And again, this is just an education pond, so the search is going to be exactly the same, just the topic is centered on education. I always find good stuff in Eric. It's great. No yawning. No yawning. Oh no. Apologies. Psychology has psych articles. And actually, whenever you click on it, it's going to be APA psych articles. And it will look essentially like this. Melissa, I see that hand. I'll call on you in just a moment there. And again, looks the same, just a different category of searches. And then last but not least, science. I click on the wrong, maybe it didn't pull up for science. If it disappeared, I'm gonna be sad. I don't know where Medline went, so I'm just gonna go to all subjects and go to M for Medline, medical literature. So it has, again, a lot of different information here that's helpful for providing that background information. Melissa, go ahead and pop on in while I'm switching my share back over to my PowerPoint.
Okay, so when you were on the Heinlein, what's the difference between the database search and the regular search bar? What are
So
the
the data, yeah,
differences?
It's a good question. So the database search would be if you're looking for a specific sub database. So Hein Online contains different little journals, different sections that you can look inside. So if you know that you got your source from that particular data sub database, you could search for it inside Hein Online. But you just want to actually do your search for the topic, which would be the top search bar.
Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of that was looking for scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles. It's a lot. Finding scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles can be overwhelming. However, using those tools can be good things to put in your back pocket. Usually you're only required to find a few, not like 50. So once you find something that looks promising, I like to pause, look through it, take some good notes right away, and then you can keep on rolling forward with your research. Sometimes you will also be required to find a book, whether that's so LAN 100 and LAN 101 require you to do some looking for a book. Of course, if you have something in your house that is scholarly and great, then fantastic, you've completed finding your book. However, sometimes you are looking for either maybe a commentary or whatever the case may be. And so, if my slides will advance. Here we go. We have these different options here. So, and I will briefly show you each of them. Where I'm almost always, I find stuff is the big, beautiful search bar. So I will take you back over to the library page. Again, I promised we would switch back and forth. We are switching back and forth. Everybody see my page okay? Super duper. So if you go to the library page, this right here is the big, beautiful search bar in the middle of the page. Whenever I use it, I always change it to books/ebooks. Even if you don't do that, usually if you do the search, most of the results you get are going to be books/ebooks anyway. Notice that I did not use the big, beautiful search bar to find articles. That's because whenever you do the search, it's actually not looking through the entire library. It's only looking through a couple of select databases. So you're not going to get the full results that you would by going into something like Academic Search Premier, JSTOR, Google Scholar. You're just not getting nearly as many results. And so I would not use the big, beautiful search bar for articles. I would use it for books and ebooks. So let's go ahead and just do a search. Let's say abortion. And right away, we have some results. Now, for those of us who do not live close to LBC in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, you're going to want to, on the left-hand side, change your results to not select print books because you don't want to have to drive to Lancaster and pick up a physical book. You want the electronic versions. And so we have our ebooks here. And you can do this just with topics, or if you need like a commentary on, let's say, Ephesians. Boom. Commentary on Ephesians. Now, you wouldn't even need the word on, but the word on is going to appear pretty much somewhere in the word, and so you can do that. But there you go. If you want a specific phrase, you can do commentary on Ephesians and put it in quotation marks. However, that will eliminate anything that doesn't have that particular title. So if it's a commentary on Ephesians, but it's not called commentary on Ephesians, then that won't populate there. Whenever you are doing the search, you can go to advanced search and you can change up the keyword or the title here. Notice that right now, the commentary on Ephesians is the keyword. If I wanted those words to appear in the title, I could change this to, so let's say I get rid of commentary Ephesians. Okay. And I change both of these to title. So now I'm only going to get results that have both the word Ephesians and the word commentary in the title, but they don't necessarily need to be next to each other. And so again, I'll do that search. Okay. And there are fewer here. So there may have been some results that popped up that were a commentary on, let's say, Galatians, and Ephesians was mentioned somewhere, but it's not a commentary on Ephesians, then we've eliminated that search. So some tips and tricks for you there whenever you're looking at books. Again, best place to find books, the big, beautiful search bar. You can also, if you go under the Find menu, go back to databases. We've been living in the databases life here. And instead of looking for scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles, we're going to look for eBooks. I'm going to change the database type from all to eBooks. And then if you look through right here, all EBSCO eBooks, you can click on this and it's our full ebook collection. So you can select that to look for eBooks. I will show you as well, there are two research guides that I like to use to find specific kinds of books. So if you go to research guides, you can either click on it from this screen, or if you go back to the library page, under the Find sub-menu, instead of clicking on databases, you can click on research guides. And then just like we did before, you can come down to literature and language, LAN 101, English Comp. And then instead of clicking on databases and tutorials, you can click on finding books. Now, again, whenever you're here, you have to be careful because some of these results are going to be for physical copies in the library. And so if you are not close enough to LBC, this will be not helpful. But you can click on things like opposing viewpoints, opinions throughout history, or counterpoint. So counterpoints is especially nice. It's a biblical series, but even these ones, all of these are great for the LAN 101 argumentative essays. And then you can do another search for books or ebooks here. I'm just going to briefly show you. So if you click on one of these, so let's say opposing viewpoints, it'll start the search and say, hey, we're just bringing up everything that is in that series. And then let's say I wanted to see if there was one on abortion. I would just add the word abortion up here. And we have 48 within that series, or at least with that close to that series. So that's great there. So again, that's in the literature and language research guide. You can also, when you go back to research guides, sorted by subject automatically, go to Bible and theology, go to biblical studies. And then instead of going to finding books, which you can certainly do, I'm going to go to reference. And the reference material in biblical studies gives you a whole bunch of dictionaries, encyclopedias, Bible introductions, other Bible resources, and atlases. This is a wealth of information for those of us who are writing in the biblical and theological spheres, whether you're in BTH 101 or if you're doing grad work. It gives you a lot of information, all of these different resources, and most of them are electronic. Over here, you have in-library use, so if you're close enough to the library, you can do these down here. But all of these ones at the top are electronic. So for all of us who are far away, we can access them this way. Any questions on finding books? Can't see people. Just going to cover a couple more subcategories here. Sometimes you may be looking for a particular kind of thing. So whenever we're looking for scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles and books, you sort of never know what you may find. However, if you're thinking through your rhetorical triangle and you're perhaps trying to add more pathos, and so you're looking for stories, or you're looking for some other categories of things. So I'm just going to briefly highlight a couple of additional search items for you here. I'm a paid professional. PowerPoint works for me. It does. It doesn't want to work. Oh my gosh. Here we go. Okay. So these are my 4 different ways to find just stories whenever you're looking for additional pathos, additional ways to appeal to people's emotion. So of course you can always use the Google or your other search engine to find news articles. News articles are not bad. Remember, those kinds of articles are not the same thing as scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles, but they very often are story oriented. And so that's a great way to pull on people's emotion is to cite a news article. Of course, you always want to make sure that it is from a credible site. Not all news sites are credible. However, if you can find one that's a little bit more popular and then cross-check it against something that sort of leans the other way politically, or if you find a local news site, those are often good, or it's at least a good way to check to make sure that the facts are consistent across those platforms. YouTube and podcasts are also great ways to find stories to fill in your information. You can also use YouTube, by the way, for like TED Talks if you're looking for more ethos, or podcasts as well, I suppose. But you don't have to stick with stuff in the library. Again, you can sort of expand beyond the library walls to find credible information as long as your professors allow it. So some professors are specifically looking for you to just stick to stuff from the library. And if they ask you to do that, hopefully we've equipped you to do that well. But these are some additional things that you can certainly search for. I am going to show you ProQuest Central databases. So ProQuest Central databases essentially works to bring together all of how many of you have ever looked for anything and you were just Googling something and you clicked on what you thought was a free story and then it asked you for payment and you were like, oh, the story's behind a paywall. No. So ProQuest Central databases will take a lot of those news platforms and other databases and bring that outside of the paywall for us. So things like, I'm not promising that, I don't think we have New York Times, but stuff like the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, some of these things that are a little bit more ambitious in nature. So I'm going to go back to the home page here. We'll click on databases and then go to P for ProQuest. ProQuest Central databases. And this is a little bit confusing because there's a whole bunch of ProQuests. You're looking for ProQuest Central databases. And again, that will be in the PowerPoint. And so you can take a look at that for reference whenever I send it out. Okay. And so if you know what story you're looking for, you can just enter it there. If you're not really sure and you sort of want to browse, you can see, hey, we have the Washington Post, New York Times late edition, look, we do have look at that. Look at that. So if you want to browse all newspapers, you can see we have over 2,500. And so you can take a look on through and see what kinds that we have. Let's say I want to sort by, okay, I did that. There you go. Whole bunch that are available.
I'm sorry,
so again,
how did you get the ProQuest again?
So you'll go back to the library homepage.
Okay.
Scroll down on the left-hand side under the Find menu. You'll click on Databases. Then you could just scroll forever. I like to go to P to narrow the results so that I don't have to scroll for an age.
Okay.
And then scroll down to click on ProQuest Central Databases.
I think my issue is going to be like just remembering all these different things, like the ProQuest Central. I think you said like a couple other things that I don't even remember already.
That's okay. So first of all, again, we will send this out as a recording. This will get published to YouTube as well. And so it'll become a resource that anybody can stumble upon and watch. But also I will be sending you all the PowerPoint presentation that you can reference to. And if you ever forget, you can always ask and say, I can't remember how to get to this source. Can you tell me again? And we'll be happy to help you out. ProQuest Central is another, again, it's a nice place to go, both to just sort of search at the beginning, but also if you do find something that's behind a paywall, you can see if we have access to it through ProQuest Central, which is nice. Okay, almost done. Like, I hope so. I hope so. Just a little bit of additional information to cover for you. Okay. So statistics, while very technically, there are a couple of things that you could click on in the library to try to access statistics. I'm going to be really honest with y'all. I just use the Google. I use the Google to try to find statistics. There are a lot of great sites like that are government sponsored that are not behind any sort of database that we have access to just through the World Wide Web, and you can do it just fine through Google. You don't need anything specific in the library. But if you're trying to lean into that Logos finding statistics, use the Google. Now, I talked a little bit about search terms earlier. I just wanted to come back and say again that we want to be strategic, especially in the library when we're using those databases, whether we're looking for books or if we're looking for those scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles. It's really helpful if we can, whenever we're starting out, doing those broad searches, start taking notes on some of the terms that seem to be tuned into that particular topic, very specific to that, like bodily autonomy. That's something that's said a lot in the abortion debate. But if I didn't do research or if I didn't have background knowledge about that, I wouldn't know to use that search term. And so our background research can help us find more strategic search terms later whenever we're looking for particular sources to back up one of our subclaims, one of our sort of subcategories that we're writing about for specific paragraphs. But we don't want to just search our broad topic in all of the databases because that will become overwhelming. There will just be too many sources. And so, again, it's strategic to start off with that background research, whether you're using the Google, you're using our AI of choice to find background information, or one of those 3 starter databases from LAN 101, Credo Reference, Gale and Context, or Issues and Controversies. Using that information to then build our own background knowledge so that we know what search terms to use to try to pair together in order to get the results that we need to do our research. I'm going to stop the share. We've covered a lot. We've covered all the way from background information to scholarly peer-reviewed journal articles to books, even to things like finding stories and statistics. If you have any questions, please feel free to stick around. I will just briefly mention that we do have a whole bunch of resources available for everyone. If you go to our website, of course, lbc.edu, and then you go back to the library page, and you go to databases. Now, for those of us who were at the beginning like, wait, is that the right thing? Nope, this is the right thing. And you go to, research guides. Whew, I've been stuck on databases too much. Go to research guides. So from over here, go to research guides and go to academic services. There are 2 things that I want to highlight for you all. First is Ally Center. That link will take you to our upcoming workshops. And so you can register for additional things that are coming up for you. The next one will be with my colleague, Kristen Sloan, how to read and understand college assignments. If you haven't registered for that one yet, I would definitely encourage you to do so. And of course, you can take a look through to see what else we have available. Also, if you look at the last link here, Introduction to Academic Reading and Writing. On the top right-hand side, we have resource videos. And this takes you to the full library of all of the previous workshops we have done. Most recent ones are on the bottom here. So you can see everything from BTH 101, the final project, Faith and Learning Final. We have things on PowerPoints, multimedia presentations, grammar, thesis statements. You're looking for it, it's probably here. So if you click on any one of these, it'll take you to our YouTube page, and you can also find any of these resources on our YouTube page as well. Of course, you can also at any point schedule a one-on-one appointment with any of our team with the Ally Center. We are more than happy to help you out with any stage of the assignment process, whether that's time management, getting started with a paper, looking back over our paper for errors in grammar, just strengthening your MLA or APA. We are here to be helpful. If you need reminders on anything we covered tonight, you can schedule an appointment with us for that too, and we can certainly help you out. So now, if anybody does have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. But if you don't have any questions, or for those of us who are heading out, thank you guys so much for joining us for our workshop tonight.
Thank you.
We're so glad you
Thank you
joined
so
us.
much.